I never expected a simple sound, barely more than a rapid scratch against wood, to change everything I thought I understood about my home, my routine, and especially my cat. If someone had told me beforehand that a series of frantic scratches at my bedroom door would be the start of one of the most unsettling and eye-opening nights of my life, I would have laughed it off. But that's the thing about moments that redefine you. They never ask for permission, they never warn you, and they never arrive politely. They burst in the same way my cat did that night. Desperately, urgently, and with a purpose I didn't understand until it was almost too late. It started just after midnight. I was half asleep, drifting in that foggy space where your brain relaxes, but your senses still pick up on the world around you. I heard scratching, sharp, quick, and irregular. At first I ignored it. My cat, Milo, had his quirks. Scratching at random things was one of them, especially when he was bored or when he wanted attention. But this time, something was different. There was an intensity in it, a rhythm that wasn't chaotic like his usual play scratching. It was focused, demanding, almost intentional. Then he meowed. Not a typical meow, but a strained, rising tone I'd never heard from him before. It shook off the last bit of sleep clouding my mind. For a moment, I lay there in darkness, listening. His voice trembled. Milo never trembled. I sat up, rubbed my eyes, and called out softly, "Milo, what's wrong, buddy?" He scratched harder, faster. A thumping followed, like he nudged his head or body against the door. Something inside me tightened, and a strange mix of confusion and concern pulled me out of bed. I turned on the lamp and walked toward the door, already feeling a pit forming in my stomach. Milo wasn't an anxious cat. He was confident, curious, and stubborn. For him to act like this, something had to be going on. I opened the door just enough to peek out, expecting to see him sitting there with his usual wide green eyes and twitching whiskers. But instead, the moment the door cracked open, he shoved himself inside the room like he was escaping something. His fur was puffed, tail swollen, and his pupils were so dilated, he looked almost like a different animal. He ran past me and then turned back, staring at me as if urging me to follow. "What is it?" I whispered. He bolted out again, paused halfway down the hallway, looked back, and meowed in that same urgent way. It was clear. He wanted me to follow him. And the intensity behind those eyes was enough to make me obey without hesitation. I stepped into the hallway, which was dim except for the glow of a distant streetlight slipping through the living room curtains. Milo darted ahead, stopping again near the living room. At first, I noticed nothing strange. The house was quiet, still, ordinary. My mind tried to rationalize the situation. Maybe he saw a bug, maybe he heard something, maybe he smelled something unusual. All valid explanations. Until the moment I reached the living room and realized Milo wasn't even looking at the floor, the walls, or the windows. He was staring at the front door, more specifically, at the bottom corner of the front door, as if something beyond it had captured every bit of his attention. His body was rigid, his head tilted slightly. Then he scratched again. This time not at my bedroom door, but at the front door itself. A chill slipped down my spine. "What is it, Milo?" I whispered. He didn't look away. He didn't move except for the slight tremble in his tail. The house felt different now. The air heavier, the silence too quiet, like it was holding its breath. I knelt next to him and placed a hand on his back. I felt the tension running through him, muscles tight beneath his fur. He leaned forward, touched his nose to the bottom corner of the door, and then looked back at me. That look. If cats could speak, that look was the closest thing to a plea I'd ever seen. I pressed my ear against the door, unsure what I expected to hear. Maybe nothing. Maybe a rodent in the yard. Maybe the wind shifting something outside. But instead, I heard a sound so faint I almost mistook it for my own breathing. It wasn't scratching. It wasn't tapping. It was something like movement. Slow, subtle, deliberate. Like someone shifting their weight, gently brushing against the wood. My heart tightened. I stood up slowly, not wanting to make any sudden noises. My mind raced through possibilities, none of them comforting. Milo backed up, still facing the door, and let out a low, warning growl. I had never heard that sound from him before. It was soft, but filled with something primal and protective. My cat, who usually feared only vacuum cleaners and unfamiliar visitors, was now standing guard between me and the door. The house felt colder. My breathing grew shallow. My pulse thudded in my ears. I glanced at the peephole, but something about looking through it felt instinctively wrong, like whatever was on the other side shouldn't be met with direct eye contact. I don't consider myself paranoid. But there's a difference between fear manufactured by imagination and fear triggered by instinct. Something was outside. Something Milo didn't trust. I stepped back from the door, and Milo followed me, still watching it. He didn't blink. He didn't lower his guard. Every muscle in his body was still wired with tension. Whatever was out there, he wasn't taking chances. Suddenly, a soft tap, almost like a fingertip, touched the other side of the door. I froze. It wasn't wind. It wasn't an animal brushing past. It wasn't imagination. It was intentional. Milo hissed, fur rising again, and positioned himself directly in front of me. "Milo," I whispered. My voice cracked slightly, not from fear exactly, but from the shock of the unknown. Another tap, this one slightly louder. I exhaled slowly, forcing myself not to panic. The rational part of my brain scrambled to find explanations. Maybe a neighbor, maybe someone at the wrong door, maybe an animal bumping into it repeatedly. But none of those explanations matched the pattern, the timing, or the tension radiating from my cat. I backed away further, heading toward the kitchen where I could grab something to use as a defensive tool if needed. Not that I expected to open the door. The idea of unlocking anything right now was out of the question. But the moment I stepped away, Milo sprinted back to my side and blocked me again, as if insisting I stay close and not move too far from him. That's when it hit me. He wasn't trying to warn me about the door. He was trying to keep me away from it. I felt a cold ripple crawl across my skin. Something shifted outside again. This time a faint scraping, as if someone or something dragged something lightly against the surface. The street outside was usually quiet at night. Barely any cars, barely any people. And my porch light should have been on, but I realized then that it wasn't. I remembered it working earlier that evening. Maybe the bulb burned out. Maybe it was something else. But the idea of that light going out right before all this didn't sit well with me. I grabbed my phone off the coffee table and turned on the camera, creeping toward the nearest window. Milo followed closely, but stayed slightly behind, still keeping his eyes on the door, as if anything that came near it would be met with every ounce of feline fury he had. I pulled the curtain back just enough to look outside. Nothing. Just darkness. Too much darkness. The streetlights were on, but somehow the area around my house looked dimmer than usual, shadows stretching in unnatural ways. I squinted, trying to adjust my eyes. Still nothing, but that only made the situation worse, because whatever had been making those sounds wasn't visible in any direction. And I should have seen something. I stepped away from the window, my chest tightening again. Milo rubbed against my leg briefly, like he was grounding me, then returned to staring at the door. I whispered, "Buddy, what's out there?" He didn't blink. I walked backward to the armchair and sat down, never taking my eyes off the door. Milo hopped up onto the armrest beside me, sitting tall, alert, vigilant. More scratching. Soft at first. then gradually more persistent. Milo growled again, this time louder. I swallowed hard. I felt helpless, not knowing what was causing it or what it wanted. After a few long minutes, the scratching stopped altogether. A silence thick enough to feel settled over the room. I didn't relax. Not even a little. The quiet was worse, because quiet meant waiting. My hand tightened around my phone. I should have called someone. Anyone. But what would I even say? My cat is scratching at the door and something might be outside. They'd think I was half asleep and imagining things. I wasn't imagining anything. More movement outside. A shift of weight. A faint brush of fabric. Maybe. Something not quite clear. Milo pressed closer to me. I leaned forward, holding my breath. And then, a voice. Faint, muffled, but unmistakably human. It spoke my name. I nearly dropped my phone. No one should have been out there. No one who knew me. No one who should have been near my home at this hour. My blood went cold, my mind racing so fast it began to blur. The voice repeated my name, this time a little louder. Familiar, but not quite right. As if someone was trying to mimic a tone they'd only heard once or twice. The cadence was off, the pitch slightly wrong. Milo hissed so violently he nearly toppled off the chair. I felt the world tilt. I couldn't speak. I couldn't move. My brain screamed at me to lock every window, barricade the door, call someone, do something. But all I could do was stare at the door where that voice had come from. Another soft scrape. Then the voice again. This time it was clearer, and my stomach dropped. It sounded like one of my friends. But that friend lived across the country, and the voice didn't sound natural. It sounded rehearsed, artificial, like someone practiced speaking but hadn't mastered the emotion behind it. I stood slowly, legs trembling. Milo leaped down and stayed close to my heel as I backed into the hallway. The voice called my name again. Then, 3 slow knocks. Not loud, not aggressive, just patient, calculated. I didn't respond. Couldn't. Milo positioned himself between me and the door, back arched defensively. The knocks came again. My breath caught. I whispered, "Why is this happening?" But the truth was, something told me I wasn't supposed to know yet. Something outside wanted a reaction, and Milo was making it clear I wasn't supposed to give one. I reached for my phone again, hands trembling, ready to call someone. And that's exactly when the doorknob moved. Slowly, deliberately. Metal clicking softly as it turned just a fraction, like whoever, or whatever, was on the other side, was testing it, checking if I had forgotten to lock it. I gasped. Milo lunged forward and scratched the base of the door with explosive fury, as if attacking the spot where the intruder stood. His claws scraped loudly against the wood. He hissed and yowled with raw panic and determination. The doorknob froze. Silence returned. Complete. Unmoving. But now the fear wasn't from the unknown anymore. It was from the fact that the unknown had tried to enter. And whatever it was, it knew my name. I didn't think a house could feel smaller this fast. Every shadow felt closer, tighter, like the walls themselves were listening. Milo wouldn't move from the door, and every hair on his back still stood on end. The longer the silence stretched, the more unbearable it became. I kept staring at the doorknob, half expecting it to turn again. My thoughts spiraled. Who was out there? How did they know my name? And why did they sound like someone I knew, yet not quite? I took a few steps back, almost holding my breath so I could hear every detail of whatever might happen next. Milo heard something before I did. He snapped his head toward the window, ears pinned back, pupils wide. My heart pounded in my chest as I followed his gaze. A faint shadow moved across the curtain. Not a human shape. Not anything I could easily identify, just tall enough, broad enough, and slow enough to make my breath catch again. It glided past the window as if someone, or something, was trying to peer inside without letting me see its outline fully. The porch light was still off. I should have seen at least part of the figure's silhouette. Instead, it looked distorted, stretched, almost disconnected from the natural angles of the outside world. Then the tapping started again, this time on the living room window. One slow tap, a pause, then 2 quick taps, perfectly spaced, like a pattern. Milo ran to the window, growling again. His tail was straight, stiff, and his body leaned forward as if ready to spring through the glass. I stood frozen behind him, my hand covering my mouth as I tried to quiet my breathing. Another shadow slid across the curtain. I reached for my phone, finally forcing myself to dial emergency services. But just as I typed the numbers, Milo darted back toward the door, yowling sharply. A new sound, not tapping, not scratching. A soft slide, like something being pushed under the door. My blood ran cold. I moved slowly, terrified of what I'd find. When I reached the door and looked down, I saw a thin sheet of paper lying on the floor. Milo was crouched beside it, sniffing aggressively, ears flat. The paper hadn't been there before. There was no doubt. Someone had slipped it under the door seconds earlier. My shaking hand picked it up. There was only one sentence written on it, in a sloppy scrawl, as if someone tried to imitate handwriting, but couldn't quite control their movements. "Come outside." That was it. No explanation, no signature, no reason, just an order. Milo jumped, grabbed part of the paper, and tore it with his teeth. The sound of ripping echoed through the room far louder than it should have. I dropped what was left of the note. My chest tightened again. "Okay," I whispered, trying to force calm into my voice. "Okay, we're not playing this game." I stepped away from the door, pulling Milo with me. I headed toward the kitchen and double-checked the back door. Locked. Windows? Locked. I closed the hallway doors just in case. The night felt heavy, pressing against every wall of the house. Milo didn't leave my side once. I turned on every light I could find. Anything to break the suffocating darkness. But even with the lights on, it still felt like the night was crouched against the walls, waiting. Suddenly the air shifted, like a faint vibration. Milo noticed it too. His ears perked up, and he stared at the ceiling. At first, I didn't hear anything. Then I did. Footsteps. On the roof. Slow. Measured. Like someone carefully placing one foot after the other, testing where to step next. Milo bolted to the center of the living room and stared upward, hissing again. I stumbled backward, gripping the edge of the kitchen counter. Footsteps. Pausing directly above us. No. 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 Who climbs onto a roof at night? And why were they moving so slowly, like they were trying to avoid detection, even though they had already made themselves known? Then a new sound hit, a soft scrape across the shingles, moving toward the back of the house. I grabbed my phone again, ready to call for help. Consequences be damned. But Milo leaped up onto the kitchen chair and placed a paw on my arm, startling me. He looked into my eyes with such urgency I froze. He didn't want me to make noise. He wanted silence. The scraping moved again. Then it stopped. For a full minute, nothing happened. Not even the wind moved. Finally, the footsteps shifted, and then vanished altogether, like whoever had been up there suddenly descended or slipped off the roof into the yard. My breathing grew uneven. My heart hammered. Milo paced in small circles, tail whipping behind him. I whispered, "We have to get out of here." I wasn't sure where I'd go. A neighbor's house? My car? I just knew staying inside felt dangerous. But leaving might have been exactly what whoever was outside wanted. I grabbed my shoes and jacket, stuffed Milo into his carrier, He fought it at first, panicked, but then allowed it as if sensing it was necessary, and headed toward the back door. My plan was simple. Get to the car quietly, drive somewhere with people around, and figure out what to do next. I unlocked the back door and opened it just a crack. Cold air rushed in, but no movement, no shadows, no figures. I stepped outside 1 foot at a time, holding the carrier tight. Milo was completely silent now, a silence that scared me more than his growling. The yard looked normal, too normal. I scanned everything, fence, grass, trees, the dark edges of the yard, and found nothing. Relief trickled in, thin, but real. Maybe we could make it. I closed the door behind us quietly and started walking toward the car. Then Milo hissed inside the carrier, spinning around abruptly, as if something was behind us. I whipped around, expecting to see someone standing by the door, or near the house, or anywhere. But nothing was there. I turned back toward the car, and froze. A shape was standing beside it, tall, still, completely silent. I couldn't see its face. The streetlight that should have illuminated it flickered weakly, as if something was interfering with it. I stepped backward slowly, clutching the carrier so tightly my knuckles hurt. The figure didn't move, didn't breathe visibly, didn't react at all. Just stood there. If it had been a person, they would have said something, taken a step, reacted. This shape did nothing. Milo started clawing at the carrier, frantic, desperate for me to turn around. But I couldn't move. I was locked in place by the sheer wrongness of the figure's presence. My instincts screamed. Milo's instincts screamed louder. Then, so suddenly I gasped. The shape shifted, leaning slightly as if tilting its head. It knew I was watching. I stumbled backward again. Milo let out a sound I'd never heard before. Half growl, half cry. The shape took one slow step forward. I ran. I sprinted back toward the house, fumbling with the doorknob, slamming the door shut behind us. I locked it, then locked the deadbolt, then shoved a chair under the handle. My chest felt tight. My vision blurred from adrenaline. I ran to the living room window, pulling the curtain back just an inch. The shape was no longer by the car. It was standing in the middle of the yard, facing the house, facing me. I dropped the curtain immediately and backed away, nearly tripping over a table leg. Milo jumped from the carrier as soon as I opened it and climbed onto the back of the couch, staring at the same window with a fierceness that showed he wasn't afraid of the figure. He hated it. Minutes crawled by. I didn't dare look again. Instead, I sat on the floor beside Milo and listened. Listened so carefully that every tiny sound became a threat. I heard nothing. Not footsteps. Not tapping. Not voices. Just nothing. The kind of silence that means someone is out there waiting. Eventually, exhaustion began to weigh down on me. My adrenaline drained, leaving behind trembling muscles and shaky breaths. But I couldn't sleep. I couldn't even rest. I stayed awake with Milo until the first traces of morning light finally crept into the house. That faint glow was the closest thing to relief I had felt all night. I stood slowly and walked toward the window again. Milo followed me closely, but he wasn't growling anymore. He was cautious, guarded, but calm. I pulled back the curtain. The yard was empty, completely empty. No shape, no footprints, no signs of forced entry. Nothing. The only evidence anything had happened was the torn piece of paper still lying on the floor by the front door. I checked the porch light. It worked perfectly fine again. My neighbors hadn't seen anything. There were no strange marks on the walls, the door, or the yard. Nothing that could explain the noises or that eerie voice. But I knew what happened, and so did Milo. For days afterward, he wouldn't let me near the front door alone. He'd sit beside me whenever I walked through the house at night. He'd sleep closer than ever, always alert, always listening. Whatever had come to my door that night, he had kept me from opening it. He had kept me from stepping outside. He had kept me safe. And even if I never learned what that shape was, or why it spoke my name, I understood one thing clearly. Milo had known before I did. He had sensed danger I couldn't see. He had refused to let me walk into it. And I owed him everything. The next time he scratches a door in the middle of the night, I won't hesitate. I'll follow. I'll listen. Because that night taught me something I'll never forget. Sometimes your cat is the only one who knows what's really waiting on the other side. Thank you for listening to my story. Milo and I made it through that night because he trusted his instincts. And eventually, so did I. If you enjoyed this story, please consider supporting the channel by subscribing and sharing this video with someone who loves animals as much as we do. It helps more than you know. Thank you again for staying until the end. Milo sends his love, and so do I.